Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Aparna Gray, and I'm the head of marketing for APAC at dotdigital. I'm so excited to be kicking off the International Women's Day webinar today. So this is the second time we've co-sponsored the Women in Retail webinar with NRA. We did one last year and it was super impactful and we received such fantastic response. So we're doing it again. And I think we are going to make this into an annual occurrence. So I'm going to be doing a bit of an introduction before introducing our awesome panel. So before we get into how we can help break the bias this International Women's Day, let me tell you a little bit about dotdigital. So who are we? dotdigital is a customer engagement platform that really helps digital marketers and developers, really deliver those communications across the entire customer journey. How do we do this? We harness the really important power of that customer data, and we power engagement, conversion, and also loyalty for brands, and we help them grow and scale. And why do so many customers choose us? Our customers always comment that they love our easy-to-use platform, and we also help them surface some, really powerful insights and automate their cross-channel messages, which helps them really cater to their customer needs. So you can scan this QR code to learn more about us. But I think another reason I think our customers love us is because we have a voice, a say in matters that really affect us individually and also as a community. Specifically, we call this group Dot Voice. So the Dot Voice community at dotdigital consists of 4 main groups, each with an individual focus on an important topic. Dot Diversity or Dot DEI being one of them and a very crucial element of Dot Voice. Dot Voice initiative really empowers our employees and to really make a difference by encouraging them to come together to discuss their experiences, passions, and also enlighten each other to make changes and really, start new initiatives, whether that is within our community, in the company, or in the wider community as well. So, okay, we know International Women's Day has been celebrated for more than 100 years. And today, as women, we are still challenging some of the same biases our mothers, grandmothers, and even great-grandmothers were challenging more than 100 years ago. Isn't that absolutely unbelievable? This year's theme is Break the Bias, breaking the bias, but bias is really all around us. We face it in our own lives, and we aren't really immune to it either. We hold biases ourselves, consciously or subconsciously. We have so much information thrown at us every day, and our brain really processes this information by categorizing it into some known patterns, whether it be gender or ethnicity, ability, sexuality. We always kind of tend to stereotype people all the time. But I really think it's important to sometimes take a beat, and really reflect on this hidden prejudice and really assess how, it shows up in our actions and work really, really hard to, help break that pattern. So according to the 2021 Global Gender Gap Report, it is estimated that it will take more than 135 years to achieve gender equality. This is unacceptable. That's another 135 years already with the 100 years plus that we've been fighting for gender equality. But I truly believe if COVID has really taught us anything, it's that when our backs are against the wall, we can change, and we can change overnight. And, we must accelerate the pace of change. We can really strive to make this change now, not tomorrow, not in a month's time, or really wait until the next International Women's Day. Gender equality is really all of our responsibility. And to me, one of the most important biases we must break is self-bias. Growing up in India, I could have easily grown up to be raised in a society where not much was expected of me. And I could have easily fallen into the trap, I'm just a girl. I know my place in society and I know what the path has to be. But, my dad and my family always really taught me to be independent. And that's, if I worked hard, really anything was possible. And this was really instilled in me from a very young age. So International Women's Day is always really personal for me. I know I speak from a position of privilege because I was lucky enough to have a support group who really instilled independence in my core. But I know this is not the case for many little girls and even women in India and all over the world right now as well. So I believe we all need to really break the bias so the path is really easier and more equitable for women. But that self-belief is also equally important. We must really get over the self-bias we hold as women ourselves. So as organizations and individuals, we need to constantly ask ourselves, what more can we do to break the bias? I encourage us all to reflect on this question. We can help build a more inclusive and equitable world. Our actions, whether it be big or small, will really help raise the next generation of confident women ready to take on any challenge that really comes to them. My family broke barriers. My dad broke those barriers all those years ago by instilling that confidence in me to make me the person and the woman I am today. I suppose now it's our turn to kind of break that the bias. So scan that QR code to learn about ways you can help break the bias this year. Also, you're able to donate to numerous charities supporting women all around the world through that QR code. So give that QR code a quick scan. And I would like now to introduce you to our amazing panel of speakers. Bec Goulter, Director of Marketing at the NRA, will be moderating this fantastic virtual panel featuring Yasmin Grigaliunas, CEO and co-founder at the world's biggest garage sale, Jen Geale, co-founder and executive director at MTB Direct. And I believe Amy's going to join us as well, head of marketing at Kissed Earth. I personally I can't wait to hear from them about their triumphs and struggles becoming the female leaders they are today. And I'm sure they have lots of great advice to give to us as well. So over to you, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Aparna. And that was such a terrific introduction. You have really set the stage very nicely for our first question. Mm-hmm. And I have such an impressive panel of ladies in front of me. I wanted to ask, Aparna touched on self-bias, and a lot of us probably have that imposter syndrome or that voice saying, you can't do that, you don't have the skills, you don't have the background. Have you experienced this? What has it meant for you? I'll start off with Yaz.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thank you for the opportunity today. Yes, I have experienced it, and I've been guilty of my own self-bias in the past. I think for me, I've always worked in a male-dominated industry, right from when I first delivered pizzas at school and I was the only female driver, all the way through to working in technology and now as a founder. And it's you're in a rare space as a female in these industries that I've found myself to land in. What I have always had around me, though, is strong people and strong women and men who have been prepared to have the really hard conversations to call me out on my own bias, but also conversations to help me explore why. Why do I think this way? Why am I self-diminishing accidentally my own capabilities? And also making this unconscious bias of diminishing return for other women as well. So I've had that fortunate opportunity to really break the bias early on in my career. But I have to admit, Bec, and to the rest of the panel, I do often get questioned, oh, gee, you're really confident for a woman. And I actually really don't like that statement because it makes me feel this projection of, whoa, it's so rare for a woman to be so confident. Well, I want to understand the bias around that and would throw that back to all of us and to those out there that make those comments. Why do we feel that? Why is there a bias around that as well?
Yeah, I mean, Jen, what are your thoughts? You run a mountain bike online store, which is already seems to be something you'd face some bias about. What do you think about the self-bias and what it means?
Yeah. Similar to Yaz, I'm in a male-dominated industry. I'm a founder in tech selling bike parts and mountain bike parts, which is a very much male-dominated sport. It's changing though. Lots more women we're seeing coming into the sport. I guess probably, to be honest, when I was reflecting on this question of self-bias, I haven't struggled a lot myself with self-bias. I have always kind of been relatively confident in myself and I'm good at what I do. And I'm happy to say that, and I think I've always sort of come into the world, I think, expecting to get the same opportunities as everyone else. I think like Aparna said, that I attribute that a lot to my upbringing. I think just growing up, it was me, my brother, and my parents treated me the same. And I grew up expecting that I would have the same opportunities. And so that has served me really well, because I think I don't struggle so much with that self-bias. I've gone into the world and gone, great, I expect to have the same opportunities that he's got, but it did mean that, particularly, I remember, leaving school. I went to an all-girls school as well. That was all very encouraging and empowering of us as women. But then I got to, my second week of university and was hit in the face with gender bias and inequality, and it was a real slap in the face, because I didn't expect it. I thought that was something that was in the past, and, women had struggled in the past with this kind of stuff, and it was behind us. So that was interesting, I think, then. And over the years, then I've been able to meld that kind of ingrained expectation of equality that I'm very grateful to have, and that I want to instill in my own daughters, with the reality of the biases that unfortunately do still exist. And I think I'm constantly sort of weighing those two things up. And it's a challenge, but I think if you're going to go one way or the other, I'd suggest that confidence and expecting these things is probably not a bad way to go.
Absolutely. I mean, we know when it comes to employment, women won't apply for jobs unless they have 120% of the traits advertised, whereas men will gladly have a go when it's like 60%. So have the confidence, have the faith. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. It's so lovely to see you.
Sorry, I'm late. I blame Adelaide time. I'm really sorry.
It is. Yeah, you can blame that.
Yeah.
Look, tell us about where you have experienced bias and how you've broken that.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like subconsciously I definitely had self-bias, and probably particularly until I was in my kind of early 30s, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. So I had really low expectations for myself, and I went into marketing, which is a female predominant kind of part of industry, and I classically set my sights on like a mediocre kind of marketing career. I didn't think, I'm going to be the next head of marketing. Like that was never something that I really thought about, or those bigger kind of career aspirations. And it wasn't until my 30s and I think I felt empowered by the women around me. So I've had a really great run of phenomenal women that have, worked either kind of with me at different places or, people like at dotdigital. Beatrice was phenomenal, and Aparna, and the opportunities that have come out of those relationships, and really just understanding your own capabilities and what you can do. I think it's been a really great, just a really great thing for me.
Amazing. Just looking in the chat over here, we've had Ruby just saying anything ending with "for a woman" is so frustrating. Yes, absolutely it is. And so that actually will lead me nicely into my next question for you lovely ladies, which is, what 3 characteristics about yourself have led to your success in business? And maybe let's bonus points if you add "for a woman" on the end of them. Why not? Jen, do you want to go first?
Can I just share with you, I alluded to my first experience of gender bias was my second week of university, and it was a actual judge, Supreme Court judge, who'd heard me do some public speaking. So I did a law degree, and who pulled me aside afterwards and said, quote unquote, "You did rather well for a woman."
Oh.
Wow. And this
empowering.
is the world.
Oh,
this is the world I'm stepping into. Wow, that. So there you go. It is everywhere, and I think we've all heard that phrase, and it's a massive slap in the face. To your question of, I guess, those, what characteristics, I feel that I have, as I said, I am confident. I am confident in my abilities. I think that probably helps. But I know that I have some strengths and I have some weaknesses, and I think become even better over the years at asking for help. And, I think as women, we can sort of flip the other way, where we're trying to prove to everyone that we can do all the things, meaning that we think we need to do all the things. And that's not correct. I think it's a huge strength to be able to say, that's not my wheelhouse. I'm going to need somebody else to back me there. I think success happens in a team, a lot more than it does just one person. So being able to recognize that I'm good at this stuff, I'm not so good at this stuff, and I'm going to have to get someone to help me and ask for help. And that there's no sense of swallowing your pride or anything in doing that. So that served me, I think, really well. I would also say that I am a bit of a generalist, and I am able to, work across a bunch of different areas, not necessarily as a deep specialist. Again, I think a lot of women have that experience as well. Our career paths aren't necessarily totally linear. Often they involve different breaks that we take for various reasons. But in those breaks, we're often developing a lot of skills that we can bring back into a workplace. So, again, I think being a generalist is a great strength. There's a fabulous book called Range by a guy called David Epstein that I highly recommend on this subject of why generalists are actually often really, really successful. And I think women would probably identify with that experience of being a generalist. And then probably the last thing is that, and again, over the years, I've gotten better at understanding, what I want, coming into a scenario. What do I want? What do I value? Both in business and in life, because those two things are really closely intertwined, and that's okay. We are people with lives who are coming to work, and we work to support our lives. It's this whole sort of, symbiotic relationship, and we don't have to keep those things really separate. Recently, MTB Direct went through a process to seek investment. And, that was a process that we knew we were building up to, we knew we were getting to. And we knew that it was, a perfect time for the business to go and seek growth capital. It was really exciting for the business. Simultaneously, though, I knew, and our family knew, that we wanted a baby. And, and I knew that that second thing might adversely affect that first thing. But to me, they were both important. And it became important then. I went through that process of seeking funding pregnant and battling all the fun things that you battle pregnant, but also actually saying to investors, by the way, I'm pregnant, I'll be taking some, I was the CEO at that stage as well, I'll be taking some maternity leave, later in the year. Hope that's good, because that's how it is. And we decided that was a fantastic litmus test of who was going to be a good partner for us. And, because I had that clarity of this is what's important for me, this is what's important for the business, this is what's important for my family, could navigate all of those difficult things.
Amazing. And Yaz, you've actually just done the same thing. You've had some great success bringing world's biggest garage sale. Now Officeworks has a stake in it. How? What are your characteristics that have led you to here?
Well, I could say ditto to everything that Jen just said, and I wrote down a few. And I love to build things, and generally from the ground up. I call myself very openly a specialist generalist because I don't have a specialty. My specialty is that I am extremely average at most things, and it's usually a really strong strength. And I take that back to my triathlon days when I started triathlons in my 30s and never owning a bike, and somehow I ended up on the podium. But it's because I didn't have really a core strength. I didn't have a core weakness. I was just really okay at all things. But if I get down to a bit more seriousness, I like to build, I create a lot of acronyms and systems that allow information to be synthesized easily. And so some of my favorite acronyms are HOT, which is honest, open, transparent. So that would be one of my qualities. I'm extremely honest, extremely open, extremely transparent. And brave, which is being raw, authentic, and vulnerable every day. And that means sometimes it's pretty, sometimes it's unpretty, and it's often very gritty. It's often very shitty as well. But being able to show all of the real rather than the show reel, I'm absolutely got hunger and hustle, but I've also got heart and hurt. And I don't put on my man suit and turn up to work and try to fit in. I've always been very comfortable in the uncomfortable. And so I probably mashed a lot of things together there. But I can also transition well, and I don't do negativity. So what I mean by transitioning well is if something isn't working, or if I make a mistake or completely fail or flail, I can pick myself up, dust myself off, keep going. So my capacity my energy and my endurance are all absolute strengths, and they really do help. And not believing what other people say about me. I've been told for 25 years that I'm going to burn out, and I just say, I'm not going to burn out. I'm just going to burn brighter to prove you wrong, and in a really positive way, because I know that I go hard and long and fast and furious, and that's my personality. And when I stopped fighting that, I actually grew, and I stopped believing what other people said about me. I grew, and I completely just own it now. And what happens is you really turn a lot of people off, and they leave your orbit, but they're the people you don't want in your orbit anyway. So what you tend to then do is attract the right people who will call you out on your BS and call you out on your strengths and tell you very openly and honestly. They'll have the hard conversations with you, and they'll pull you back or push you and prod you and poke you and allow you to be coachable, which is definitely one of my strengths as well, is being coachable, and being able to look in the mirror and admit when you're wrong, even though it hurts. But then, as I said, going back to that transition capability, being able to transition out of it and not get upset for too long, still hurt and cry and, have a bit of a sulk if you need to, but just get back up on and get on with it with the right tribe and the tribe that you attract. And just in honor of Jen and obviously myself as well, recently raising capital, let's not forget that globally the statistics are that 2% of funding from venture capitalists goes to female-led ventures, 2%, less than 1% if you are a woman of colour. So I'm lucky, Jen, you are also lucky that you are a white woman, because it was easier for us. And to break the bias, we just need to have conversations back. We need to be able to just bring it to the light and not get cranky about it, because cranky will just burn energy. So just put our energy around it to change those numbers as much as we can.
I think really well said, Yaz. And, your statistics around gaining capital, we need to do a lot better, just like getting the leadership in the retail industry. About 8% of our CEOs are women. We need to do better. And Amy, so what you said earlier actually really resonated with me, because I accidentally lead into marketing as well. So can you give me 3 characteristics that made you realize, hey, I don't need to be like in this mediocre marketing career, and now you're kicking butt as the head of marketing?
Well, honestly, everything that Jen and Yaz have said today also resonate with me. The generalist comment has helped me so much in my career. I think my qualities or characteristics that have helped me have been resilience and determination, but also being accountable. So learning, in my 30s, that I'm actually the only one responsible and accountable for my progress, that there was not for me such a really supportive network around that I could really count on to help my career progression, and it was actually, I think, defiance. So that's something kind of, Yaz, that came through in your comments around like how you've gotten to this place as well. And it's not listening to what's been said. So I remember a conversation that actually shaped my career path, I guess, was pretty ironic. And it was with a former leader who, when I was in my mid-20s, I was an assistant brand manager for a mediocre wine brand. And he said at that time that without a uni degree, I wouldn't be able to progress any further in this company. And so that for me, I just like head down, butt up, and like just really worked hard. I became a brand manager within that company. So that was big for me. And then went on to a bigger brand as a CRM specialist, and then a bigger brand as a senior CRM specialist, and then came to this brand where I'm the head of marketing. It's a fantastic brand that I'm really proud to be associated with. So I think every step of the way has been a struggle. It's been, that idea of like, this isn't my job is just simply not something that I have ever said in my life, and it's like, yeah, you can ask for help and know that you need more information or you need someone to support you in certain things, but you figure out a way. And I think, those are the kind of driving forces in what led me to where I am.
I love the defiance. I think we can all relate to someone saying, no, you cannot, and then just saying, I have to prove you wrong now. So thank you for that. Look, we'll start with you, Yaz. Our third question, how do you think your work positively impacts women?
Look, I was at a breakfast this morning at my daughter's school, and, they're teenagers, so it's always embarrassing when your mum turns up to those things. I have a really amazing relationship with both of my daughters, even though for 16 years now I've not been the primary parent. I've been the primary worker. And what I'm really grateful for is that even when you are not present in as much quantity of time, if the quality of your time and presence is rich and deep and represents all the values you've just heard today, I feel like the impact soaks into the skin and doesn't always then project outwards until those moments of magic that happen. And today, a couple of young teenage girls said to me, "Whoa, you should be a motivational speaker, Yaz. Can you come and talk to our Year 10 class? I am so inspired by what you said." And I looked back and reflected on these beautiful teenage girls that felt so safe to say that to me. And I thought, I have a responsibility to continue to be honest and to help these young women unlock their soul truth, even if it's not what their parents want them to do, not what the teachers tell them to do, not what the guidance counselor says they should do as a career because they're suited to a certain thing. I just feel like I positively impact women, girls, and anyone of any gender that they prefer to be labelled by being honest and unlocking their own honesty so that they can look inside at the self-bias to then start to break that bias in the mirror. And if they can break the bias in the mirror, then the reflection to the rest of the world will be exponentially multiplied.
I really love that. And yes, you could be a motivational speaker, Yaz. Jen, what are your thoughts on how your work empowers the women around you and does great things?
I think it's similar to sort of what Yaz is saying by like she's putting herself out there in front of those girls, in front of groups of people. And sometimes I think maybe this does get to a little bit of self-bias I've experienced where I thought, because I put myself out there, in different forums, in different groups, get up and speak, and you think, is this just my ego doing this? It just makes me feel good. But then you'll talk to somebody who'll come up to you and say something like that, who'll say, that you've really inspired them, or that they're really motivated by seeing, what I've achieved in business or in commerce or like whatever it is specifically. And that makes me think, yeah, you know what? It is really valuable if you're doing something, but put it out there. Don't worry about that somebody's going to cut you down for being proud of what you've achieved. You've achieved something, and it is really inspiring for other people. It might just be what tips someone over the edge to go, yeah, you know what? I've had this idea percolating away I'm going to do it. I'm going to bite the bullet and do it. And if you can inspire people to do that, if you can give them that courage, if you can help them break that self-bias, or if you can be a champion, for other people to break other biases. So, if I can stand up as a female founder in tech, in retail, who's gone out and sought funding and say, yeah, women can do this too. We're perfectly capable. And if that positively influences somebody of any gender, then that's worth doing. So I think it's visibility and shouting it from the rooftops, and then and again, similar to what Yaz is saying, giving people time. Like I am always happy to talk to people and share wins, my failures, and and how they can avoid doing those things as well. And I think where you do have capacity as a woman who's doing work, wherever you're doing it, if you can share a little bit of those learnings with other people, that can be so powerful to help somebody either avoid those pitfalls or just give them the courage to go out and do the thing that they want to do.
It's so true. Absolutely. And Amy, what would your take be on how your work impacts women?
Yeah, I think representation. Like, I think that if the next generation can normalize women in senior roles, so career-driven women where dad actually stays home with them on a sick day, these little things where it's not mum's a boss lady, mum's just a boss. And, that is normalized. And I think that's invaluable for kids. I think additionally, women need to work together to create this support network for one another. I think men do that really well, and we call it those like boys clubs and like golf days, and they get the opportunities because they are, networking a lot, and we don't seem to do that. And I know that I don't know, it's an excuse that we've got a lot on. We've got all these things that we're not just in the workplace, and we've got all these other elements to manage in our lives. But I think that's so critical, and give yourself that time and appreciate yourself that you have a story to share, and that the networking, that you are as much an asset to those networking groups as you are taking from it. I think that's really important to kind of adopt. And it just becomes such an empowering atmosphere. So in my current role, we are that for one another. I think I look at one of the co-founders is a woman, and she is amazing. And so I find that really empowering. I think it's just uplifting. I think that's really important. And yeah, I think just making sure that we do those things as women. I also think setting the expectation. So I think that's what was probably lacking for me as a young person, was I didn't feel an expectation to do anything great or big, even like to have a big role or a senior role or a financial expectation of how much I would earn or any of those things that I think men just do. And the expectation is there from a young age that they'll be the breadwinner, they'll be running the company or the world. Like it's just, it is an expectation that they feel, I think, a bit more. So if we can start to have those conversations with the next generation of women, I just think that will be super helpful and beautiful to be able to play a part in their development too.
Absolutely. I think just empowering all of the women to back themselves and, know their value. I mean, I'm sure we can all remember the first time we've ever asked for a raise or something like that and how terrifying it was. Somehow, I don't think most blokes would have that issue. So really great and valuable insights from all of you there. Okay. So we're you've got a panel of leaders here, you've got your own businesses, and you have inclusive companies, you prioritize having equality and diversity at your workplace. We've got a lot of companies on the line who maybe want some advice with that, who want to help get in that position. So what advice do you have to help companies be more inclusive? And Jen, I think we'll start with you.
Yeah. I think the best thing to do is probably just to ask, and I do know that there's maybe just a tension where some people want to support diversity by pretending that difference doesn't exist, and therefore to engage with it and to ask, how do I best support you, is a bit taboo. But then you end up sort of doing nothing, and in this sort of inclusiveness no man's land where you're not really doing anything meaningful because you're avoiding having those difficult questions for understandable reasons, for feeling like you don't want to call out difference. And I can see where people end up in that sort of thinking. But at the end of the day, you're not really going to get very far unless you sit down with various groups, gender diversity or otherwise, and sort of say, how do I best support you? How do I make this work environment work for you? What are the challenges that you think you might be facing that perhaps we're not aware of? Or, how can we make this a better workplace for you? And on the pathway to that, though, because I recognize it can be difficult when you're in your bubble and you don't have a lot of diversity, it's difficult to start to expand it because you don't have people to have those conversations with. Just from my perspective, I think it's just more flexibility, being flexible where you can, recognizing, and I think that's one of the sort of silver linings, if you like, of COVID and the working arrangements and stuff that we've had over the last couple of years, is we've recognized that the people in our teams, our staff, our employees, our leaders are whole people. They don't just come to work and discard everything that's going on at home and then whiz back out the door to home. They're all one and the same, and when they're going through changes in their life, when they're going through difficult situations, joys and heartbreaks and grief and practical things and floods and natural disaster, everything, like whole people. And the more flexibility we can give to people in general, the more accommodating we can make our workplaces, then hopefully the more inclusive we can make them as at least a starting point for sort of more general inclusivity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a terrific perspective. Yaz, what are your thoughts on having just a more inclusive workplace?
Yeah, I absolutely echo everything Jen just said. I think that we are a social enterprise, so we have people of all abilities or different ability. We use the word different rather than dis, because disability doesn't sound so kind. But that's my personal opinion. I have a daughter on the spectrum, and I don't like calling her disabled because she's actually enabled and has superpowers, like we all do. So I agree. I want the whole human at work: the heart, the love, the hurt, the feelings, the impact, the ideas, the fractures, the fails, the whole package. I don't want perfect. And again, I said it earlier, it's more about less show reel and more real. If you're hurting, cry. If you're, hungry, eat. Like, what are our needs, and how do we just move barriers out of the way or jump over them, climb them, conquer them, and get through to the goals and the summit and the metrics that matter, that do need to be part of a deliverable, the corporate side of the business, at the same time as taking the whole human along with us, which is different. Like, our systems don't support that. Our systems don't support people being late because they had an anxiety meltdown this morning, or that they didn't do their job as well today because they have something on their mind in relation to something that's going on with someone at home. Our systems and business structures don't support that. So for me, it's about really vocally enacting and living and breathing that myself. Like, I have terrible things going on in my life at the time, at various times as well. My mum died. My my ex-husband's dad died 2 days later. And at the same time as I was going to an awards night for a celebration, this was years ago, and I never hid that away. I never hid away that my daughter's had some mental health challenges, that she's been in hospital, that she struggles with anxiety. And it's part of the package of who she is, and that's part of the package of who I am as a leader. So when I bring the real to work, it gives people permission to bring their real as well. But what I do here, and this needs to stop, again, self-bias, is I hear women apologizing for showing feelings, apologizing for not feeling enough, apologizing for, maybe not fitting into this archaic designed society that is what we're all trying to redesign. So what I say to those of us that are feeling like we're different, that's perfect. That's exactly what we're supposed to feel. So your difference is the strength we all need to build new systems alongside the men and with women and with those non-binary and all, again, genders, and accept and project that these differences are our strengths. And just real. Just be real. Even if it's ugly. The ugly is what helps us be more beautiful.
Thank you, Yaz. One of the trends I am glad to see go by the wayside is just, and this is for everyone, men and women, is you leave everything at the door when you come into work and you just turn off and you start working. We're all human beings, so let's recognize that. Now, Amy, I'm actually really interested to hear your perspective on this because, we've got Jen and Yaz who are the heads of their companies and who've crafted this inclusive human resources environment. But what are your perspectives on how companies can be more inclusive?
Well, I definitely agree with what both Jen and Yaz have said, for sure. And I think when Jen said, don't pretend that you're inclusive, I think that's so relevant. I've been in environments where, the entire leadership team, with the exception of the head of HR, everyone else is middle-aged white male, and the HR person is always middle-aged white lady, and that is how it is. And I think be real, understand who will be comfortable taking a seat at that table, and what example you're setting for the company. Are women going to feel like there is a seat at the table for them? Are they feeling inspired? Are they feeling supported? Are they feeling that one of those positions could be theirs next? Are they being benched for these roles, or are they being overlooked? I think there's an opportunity to be realistic and to say, like, what culture are we inspiring here in our company, and making those changes. So I'm I apologize if Aparna already talked about this, but she said the other day, even writing ads, like when you're hiring, so you're writing role profiles. Did she talk about this already? No. Okay, sorry. So I just think that is so insane that we've never really thought about that or discussed it before. If a man reads this, is it going to really resonate with him? Will it also resonate with a woman? Like, are we being discriminatory in our role profiles and our job ads? And that is crazy. Like, rethink the vocabulary that you're using, and picture the person that's going to apply. And if you have someone that you would love in that role, have them look over the role profile and say, I would apply for that or not. And if they won't, rethink it, rework it, because it's important. And that's with any kind of anyone that diversity is not just about gender, but because it's Women's Day, we are talking about that. But that's with any kind of diversity that you're trying to encourage in your work environment.
That's absolutely right. And, you are correct when it comes to the intersectional nature of hiring and that sort of things. Yes, today we're talking about women, but all of this equally applies to the LGBTQ community, to people of colour. We need to, do as best we can in all of those respects. So we've got one final question before we turn over to the audience. Now, do you or have you had a leader as a mentor who has inspired you throughout your process, throughout your career, man or woman? Surprise me. Can we start with you, Amy?
Yes, absolutely. Like I said at the beginning, I've been so lucky to work with some really inspiring and empowering women in my career, in my home life, in every element. But the person that I would like to talk about today is Rach. So she is the founder of Kissed Earth, and she embodies all of the really feminine kind of characteristics that we often kind of attribute to holding us back. So she's super caring, empathetic. She's genuinely lovely, would do anything for anyone. She's legit, just such a nice person. But she has used all of those strengths to build the most fabulous, loyal community, and they support her and they love her and they love that she wants to help them. And so she's built a whole business around this about uplifting each other. And she's made an entire range of phenomenal products that do help women feel their best. So it's that I find I love working for this brand. The products are fabulous. They're everything that, they're more than what we even talk about them being. They're the most authentic brand. But in addition to that, it's women empowering women and women helping each other to feel great. And it's such a great thing to be a part of. So Rach is absolutely my inspiration at the moment.
It's terrific because, as was said earlier, you don't have to put on your man suit to come into work and be a business person. You can own your femininity, which we love. Jen, what about you?
I think as I alluded to before, a big thing for me has been, my upbringing and how I was brought up, and it was instilled in me that, I could do all the things. And so for me, it's got to be my mum. She's the one that really built that up in me. Personally, she was, she raised us as kids, with my dad, but she worked as well. She was a great colleague. She's a great mentor in her business, a great friend. She just quietly went about doing all the things. But instilled in me that sense that I could also go and do all the things and that I deserved those opportunities. And then in doing so, she showed me how to raise confident daughters, which is my next challenge.
Absolutely. All right. Yaz, who is your mentor who has inspired you?
I honestly would do a disservice to the scores of people that I could name right now if I was to specifically point out one or two people, but I'm going to bookend it because it began with Kerry May, who was my first ever boss, and she is Don May's sister. So I'm a Silvio's alumni pizza delivery driver from year 12 at the Red Bank Plains store. go, yay. And I was the only female driver at the time. And Kerry she just believed in me. She never let me use the fact that I was the only female driver as an excuse to not be the best driver in the store. And I definitely ruffled a few feathers when I was way better than most of the guys. In fact, all of the guys, so I'll comfortably say that. She was tough, really tough. And I sense that this is a theme in my life. Like I've had all these, my mum was, really protective, single mum. My dad left at 3 and my mum was a single mum with 3 daughters under 3, like seriously at age 21. So certainly very much like Jen, I was raised with strong values, and Kerry was the perfect first boss for me. And I didn't know it at the time, as I was 17, that she was really my first ever mentor, but she shaped me. It was a sliding doors moment. So then throughout my career, I had these I've always had this thematic of strong people prepared to call me out and push me and see in me what I might not have seen in myself at the time. But there was a magical moment with our recent capital raise where I got to present, and ironically, in the retail industry, to a female leader, and that being Sarah Hunter, the managing director of Officeworks. And let me tell you, I'm so glad they invested, not for my business, but for me, from a leadership perspective, to be able to have someone like Sarah that I can now look up to for the future of not only my own career, but the careers of every single person that will, work within an industry that I ever have the opportunity to work in. It's next level. And there are women who have selflessly and, loyally supported me along the way. And there are men who have done the same. But the theme around every single person that's ever influenced me as a person is it goes back to the strong values, the strong conversations, the ability to have honest, raw and authentic moments that most people run from, most people hide behind, but that I don't understand or know how or why, but perhaps because I project a desirability to hear the hard things, that I'm just so grateful for everyone that has shaped me. And I am who I am today because of every single person that's been a mentor along the way. And I'm so grateful for that.
So lovely. Such great answers from all of you. Thank you very much. Well, that was the last of our pre-planned questions. I've actually already had a question come through on our question and answer box. So everyone, if you have anything you would like to ask, please type them now. So we've got one. Apologies if this has already been addressed, but what are your thoughts on the motherhood penalty? I'm about to face 12 months of maternity leave and can't shake the fact that it might slow down my career. What would your advice be on the return to work, and how can I set myself up to succeed? Who wants to take that?
Let me start with an extreme version. I didn't ever take maternity leave. I had 2 daughters, almost birthed one at work, went back to work, 4-hour sleep cycles. Don't let anyone tell you that it can't be done. And this was back in 2006 when flexible working was still crazy town, and you were working from home meant you were not really working. You might have been folding the laundry as a woman. But I launched the Video Pro online years ago for working flexibly. I was able to continue to keep my toe dipped in my career by choice. I'm not saying you need to do that, but maybe have a conversation with your employer. Do you really need to disconnect completely? Can you read articles? I don't know your job, but is there any opportunity for you to actually shape a different version of what maternity leave looks like? As someone that never took it, I have zero regrets, but I was completely integrated still into the business, even though I wasn't there full time. And I was able to ensure that nothing slowed down for me.
I can take this one as well. Now that seems like a superhuman effort there. Yes, hats off to you. I've got 2 boys. They're 15 and 11 now. One of them is also on the spectrum, and my younger one's on the spectrum as well. So I know the struggles there. Yes, but when I first got pregnant, I was in England. I gave birth, went back, did my 1 year of maternity leave that we're lucky enough to get in England. Came back to work. Shifted jobs. The new company couldn't really figure out what to do with me as a new mother, couldn't really understand why I needed all the flexibility. It was just interesting. I just didn't feel that it was right. So I left and I took the break. I took the break. We moved back from London back to America. And that was what was right for me. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is, not, what might work for me might not work for Yas, might not work for somebody else, or for the person who asked the question. So follow your gut, be real to yourself. Having kids is supernatural. Like it's been happening for eons, it's a very natural thing. And if you work for a company who doesn't understand that, yes, things do change when you have children and you have a human that you are in charge of and need to keep alive and thriving, I left because they didn't understand that. I'm also very lucky to have my husband who had we were very, very close at 50% taking care of the kids, and we still do that. And I think it's really important to call that out as well. Speak with your partner as well to see what his or her expectations are for this child. But be real to yourself, your career. I'm the head of marketing for a company here. Obviously I've had 2 children, but I did take the break when I knew I needed the break and, really look after the kids. So.
Amazing. Okay, so Farah, I've got a very interesting one from Emily here. It would be great to understand if any of you have been able to influence the gender balance in a workplace where you've been in middle management rather than the leader at the top of a business, and how you were able to do that. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I would say make yourself heard. I know it's very basic, and it's probably the answer that people presume that you'll hear anyways. But if you don't say there's an issue, or that you see something that is not right, it can never be fixed. Just today, I gave some advice on something that appeared on LinkedIn. I knew the organization. I said, actually, guys, I know it's around International Women's Day, but I don't think you are actually showcasing that diversity within the images you've put forth. And they took the advice and said, you know what, if you hadn't told us, we would have just been blind to it. So it's almost speaking up, wherever you do see the bias. And if you're in the right company, whether you're middle management, top management, you've just started, they will hear from you. They will listen. They will hear and they will listen, and take advice from, even, doesn't matter whether you're middle management or not. So that would be my advice.
I agree. I think the other thing is, like, as a middle management person, you've got an opportunity to really provide the support. So I think other people working within the company in those lower roles at that time, they'll be more inclined to speak to you, and you can be more of a mentor and a leader, and you can encourage and provide that support network and help them understand that these opportunities are open to everyone and really set their development. So I think that's something that you probably have more of an opportunity to do, and to inspire the actual individuals, as well as, you have your voice heard within the company.
Yeah. And I think, I've been the leader or the founder that's had employees sort of speak up and say, hey, why aren't we doing X, Y, Z? Why are we doing this? And called stuff out. And yeah, like I've been grateful when that happens, because sometimes, particularly it depends on the size of the company, or, small company, the leaders feels like they're doing everything. Large company, there's a lot, going on. So sometimes you just miss stuff, or, so, you need someone to bring it to your attention, or you don't really know where to focus. So don't assume that the company's not doing it through ill intent or anything like that. It may just be that it just hasn't bubbled up. And so you could be the person to bring that up. And as the others have said, if it's the right company, if it's somewhere that's, that you want to be, then you will be heard. And I think the leadership should be grateful to know that these kind of things are important to their team. And then it also, as a leader, it makes me more inclined to pursue different things, because I know there's sort of like groundswell support within the team for an initiative, rather than just, I had a thought bubble, and so I think we should do this. I think a lot of leaders are actually, averse to kind of pushing initiatives down like that, because it doesn't necessarily seem really genuine. But if you know that the whole team's around it, then change can really happen. So you actually have, I think, a really powerful voice in that role that the question is asked.
Yeah, and I remember when I was not a leader in a role, and I just witnessed this all-male, pale male board. They literally could have almost had the same body measurements as well. And there were 4 or 5 white men on a board, and I just called it out. I was like, need some diversity on this board. And look, they did listen, and I don't remember how long it took, but, at a period of time post that conversation, there were some women appointed to the board, and the business did fly after that. And so for me, it's, as a leader now who had their voice heard when not a leader, now I'm really conscious of ensuring that I talk to the team members that I have on the ground so that they can help us make decisions that I might be blind to as well. And, I now find myself in the complete opposite position. 90% of my leadership team are women. And we're asking ourselves the question, what do we need to do about that to ensure we have diversity in our leadership? So it's a really interesting position to be in, because is what we have now a potential future risk for businesses who don't have gender balance in the other direction?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really great perspective, Yaz, particularly when it comes to making sure that we've got equal representation. Okay, I've got one more question. We've got Jamie, who's asked, some of the hardest bias I have encountered has come from women who likely encountered it themselves so often that it became the norm. Is this something that others have experienced? How do you approach that kind of issue?
Yeah, I think I, again, saw that pretty early on in my career, the stiletto ceiling. I think I've heard it referred to as, where it's, women who work really damn hard to get where they are, and for whatever reason aren't set on enabling other women's success. It's definitely a challenge to work with. I think, again, calling it out if you can. But I think, the onus probably for the people that we're talking to today, the onus is on us all to make sure that we are not doing that we are not carrying forward these patterns of behavior and sort of going, this is the path that I had to tread. So I'm guessing you will have to overcome these things as well, finding a way to be supportive and to use our experiences as illustrative, but not as some sort of rite of passage that people need to go through. So I think probably the best thing is a kind of buck stops here attitude and reflecting on yourself. It's probably a very easy one to miss, I think, in yourself. Where am I doing this? Where am I potentially making things actually a little bit harder inadvertently, just because that's kind of what I experienced? It's a great question.
I absolutely agree. I think those are the patterns I was talking about. They're innate, in our, psychology. It's just, we kind of think about certain things and compartmentalize them in a way. And one of the things that I have seen, which is almost kind of a reverse bias, maybe, it's mums who are just mums. And that's okay too, and that's, I will never look down on a mum who is just a mum, because that's what they want to do. That's what they think they want to do. And that's, if that's truly what they need, then it's 100% okay. But I've heard that as well. Like, oh, what does she do all day anyways? How can you just be a mum? I've heard that, and it's really, it's interesting because I've seen my mum being just a mum, and then she was a teacher, and then she retired and she was just a mum, and she can do both, and she was great at doing both. So I think it's almost having the reverse effect of as well, to ensure that we're not looking at women who want to be at home and just want to rear kids and be busy in the fantastic ways that they do. That's totally fine as well. And to answer the question, how do you stop that? But I think it's something that you have to consciously, as I said, take a beat and think about how you're categorizing a set of women or a set of people, and just almost have a conscious, and not just on International Women's Day, and I keep thinking about, yes, International Women's Day, we're talking about this now, but this goes throughout the 364 other days of the year. So yeah, it's something that we have to be conscious about as well.
Yeah, and can I just also say, from the just a mum perspective, let's break the bias around the just a mum. That's absolutely should not ever be used as a term, you're just a mum. I chose to be a CEO and continue working because it's actually easier than being just the mum. The just the mum job is the hardest job, I think, that any human could ever do. And the ability to harness a family and be the leader, the CEO, whatever you want to call it, of that family, the unit, the heart, the soul of the future of generations, is actually the most important job that anyone could ever do in the world. And so I don't diminish that as a lesser position. I actually feel like what triggered me, the break the bias, let's really, like, I'm happy to shut up after this, but what just triggered me was, oh my God, we value people's value by the pay packet, which is actually the wrong way to value. So we diminish, like, the bias is that we diminish the role of a mother because, or primary parent, because they're not earning any money. And we elevate the roles of the president, prime minister, barrister, QC, all these like really important people. The importance bias is based on the amount someone is being paid. Well, there's the bias we actually need to break. I now have a conscious thought around that. I am totally going to commit from this panel onwards that I am never going to rate someone's level of importance in life based on the wealth or perceived wealth that I think they have based on their title or position. So I'm really glad that you said that, Aparna, because the just a mum thing is the most valuable position that any human can take as a leadership role. And the sad thing is we just don't value it to the level that it's actually worth.
Actionable outcomes here. Love that. We've come away with something. So good. All right, that is all of our time today. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming along. If you enjoyed this panel, can I please recommend hopping onto the Retail Smarts podcast, where NRA CEO Dominique Lamb interviews the Greens Senator Sarah Hanson-Young about sexual harassment in the workplace. It's a ripper. I think everyone should give it a listen. Thank you very much, Yaz. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Amy. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. And thank you to Aparna and to dotdigital for helping make this thing happen. All right, everyone have a good year, and we'll see you again next International Women's Day, and let's all be excellent to each other in the meantime. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.